We are live once again, and I was woefully underprepared. Got to make sure that you hydrate before you dehydrate. This week's drink is just plain water. I do not have any Monster in the house, unfortunately. Just going to wait for a few people to join us here on our TikTok live. So again, for anybody watching this after it's been recorded, this is the preamble where you just get to sit and watch me gabble about nonsense, or you know, you can skip forward skip forward to when I actually start going over the fighter, which is what our live is about today. But as always, I'm going to do a dice of the live. This is I can't remember the name of it, but this is a set that I got from Libris Arcana. I can't, if it's Libris, I'm not entirely sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but these are the dice that I got for our Icewind campaign when it started a couple of years ago. So another D20, and I thought, you know, because Icewind, it's cold, it's dark, so I went with the blue and white themed. It's the percentile in the D10. And I love these dice. I'm not quite ready to retire these dice just yet, even though my my dwarven cleric Erin, R.I.P., she did unfortunately fail her death saves a few sessions ago, and her wife Hope took her place. It's a D4, and I actually also got a spare orange D6 as well. So I do take these dice with me to our Icewind sessions. I just use them as extras, because you never know when you're going to need a metric butt ton of D6s. I can't remember what spell it was, but our last session of Icewind, our bard, he had something where he got to roll like 6 or 7 D6 at once. So he was basically just pilfering everybody's D6s every single time he cast this spell. So yeah, and the foley was out of control, shall we say. And my glass is just a little stitch glass. He looks a little bit worse for wear. So he got put in the dishwasher, unfortunately. None of this is sponsored, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering. Music again, as always, is by the Feeters. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not entirely sure. I could be completely wrong, but there we go. I love their music. This has very fightery vibes, I do believe. I think we're just going to make a start. I'm going to wait for more people to join. Yes, we are going over the fighter from the 2024 version of the Player's Handbook today. So we have covered so far the Barbarian, the Bard, the Cleric and the Druid, and now we are on to the fighter. So their core ability is strength and dexterity, and their hit die is, if I can find it, their hit die is D10. So that's their hit die. So obviously when you go through a short rest, you can roll that to regain some hit points. You get an extra one every time you level up. And fighters, they tend to be all-rounders, quite a good class for people who are just joining. So fighters and the Barbarian, they tend to be quite good in terms of, it's versatile, but the mechanics aren't as hard to wrap your head around as, say, the Wizard or the Sorcerer can be, because some people look at the magic tables and stuff like that. There is a subclass called Eldritch Knight. They do have spells and stuff, but it's not as complicated as, say, the Wizard or the Sorcerer would be. So again, it's pretty good all-rounder for a beginner player. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. They do have a range of fighting styles, so you can go for ranged in terms of archery, you could go for 2-weapon fighting, you can go for, I think there was a couple of others to choose from. Those weren't the only 2 available. But yeah, there are quite a lot to choose from. And at level 1, you do get that fighting style. So if you did go with the archery, you'd get a +2 to attack. If you went with defense was another one. That's what I was trying to remember. And you get a +1 to your AC. There are quite a lot to go through. Like I said, I'm not going to be going through every single one on these lives. I'm just going to be going over the basics. And then at level 1 again, you also get your second wind. So that is also when you roll your d10, and you can add that to your, I think it's, yeah, a d10 plus your fighter level. You'd be able to regain hit points. You can do that twice per short rest or long rest. So if you are a little bit short on HP in combat, you can use it as a bonus action and you'll be able to get some HP back. You also get weapon mastery, so I think this is new for the 2024 version of the rules. So you get things like certain weapons have certain weapon masteries, so you can, I'm not entirely sure what other weapons it would be, but I know for my monk character, she uses a quarterstaff, and that has the topple mastery, so I can, every single time I use that to attack an enemy, I can force them to make, I think it's a strength check, and if they fail, they're knocked prone, so they then have to use half their movement to stand up. There's other ones that can be used to reduce movement, other ones that can be used to stop the opportunity attacks, so they won't be able to, even if someone moves away from them, they won't be able to take an opportunity attack against either you or like an ally until the start of their next turn. So, and you can change those. Different weapons have different masteries, and you can change them on a long rest if you want to. When you get to level 2, you get your action surge, which basically means you can do your action again. So you could do your attack, action surge, and then you can attack again, basically giving you two attacks in one round of combat. You can only use that once, and it does reset on a short rest or a long rest. I think when you get to level 16 or 17, I think it's one of those two, you get to use it twice, but you can only use it once per turn. So then once you get up to level 17, I think you'd have 3 attacks. So you couldn't use your 3 attacks, use action surge, use another 3 attacks, and then do it again. So you'd have to wait until your next turn to do a second action surge. You also get a level 2 tactical mind, and that means that when you fail an ability check, you can expend a use of second wind, and you get to add your add your d10 again. I just like showing off these dice. They're very, 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 very pretty. And then you can add that, and hopefully that will you'll be able to succeed in that ability check. If you don't succeed, even with the addition of the second wind die, then the second wind die isn't expended. So you don't. If you fail, it's not lost basically. Level 3, you get subclasses. So there's the Battlemaster Champion and Eldritch Knight, one of which that I briefly spoke about before. They've also added Psy Warrior. Yeah, Psy Warrior for the 2024 version. So the first 3 were already in the 2014 version of the Player's Handbook, but they've added Psy Warrior. I think I did have a quick look through all of the classes, and each class now has 4 subclasses. So some have been bumped up to 4 and some have been reduced by 4. So I think the Barbarian originally had 2 subclasses, now it has 4. Originally the Cleric had, I think, 6 subclasses, and now that's been reduced to 4. So I think they're kind of trying to maybe even it out across the board. I'm not entirely sure, but you know, that's my take on it anyway. At level 5, you get an extra attack, so in one action you can do 2 attacks rather than just the one. Does exactly what it says on the tin. You get a tactical shift as well. So when you activate your second wind as a bonus action, you can move half your movement without provoking any opportunity attacks. So say you had 30 foot of movement, you'd be able to move away from enemies or potentially through enemies. Say, I'll get my little get a battle map. So say you had an enemy there and an enemy there and you were there, you could use this what's it called, tactical shift, and you could move 5, 10, 15. You could go to a square here, but you wouldn't provoke an opportunity attack from these two enemies, even though you went past them. Level 9, I was going to say 19 then. Level 9, you get Indomitable, and you can re-roll a failed save and add your fighter level as a bonus. So obviously you'd be, say you were level 9, as long as you weren't multi-classing, you'd be able to re-roll the save and add 9 as a bonus. You would have to use that new roll though. You can only use that once, and it does reset on a long rest. And you get more uses of that as you level up. You also get Tactical Master, so when attacking with Weapon Mastery, you can change it from, there are quite a lot of weapon masteries, like I mentioned before, Topple was one of them, but you can swap that for either push, sap or slow. And again, I think the push is they have to make a save or be pushed back from you. And again, the slow is it reduces their movement. And I think the sap, I think that stuns them, maybe? I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that, but if anybody knows what the sap does correctly, then feel free to let me know. At level 11, you get an extra attack for a total of 3. So again, if you were going to do your action surge, then you'd be able to attack 3 times, take your do your action surge, and then you'd be able to attack another 3 times as well. So it's pretty good, pretty beefy. I mean, at level 11, you are pretty hardy anyway as characters, but yeah, being able to actually do 6 attacks in 1 round is pretty good. Level 13, you get studied attacks, so you get to learn from any attacks that you make, and if you miss an opponent with 1 attack, you get an advantage on your next attack. So with those 3 attacks, you could hit your opponent on the first go, miss your opponent on the second, but on the third you would get advantage. In terms of like flavour wise, you've learned from your past mistakes and you're able to rectify them, and you get advantage on the attack. Level 19, as always, as with the other classes, you get an epic boon, and it's recommended that you go for combat prowess. So you get to increase an ability score by 1 for a maximum of 30, but also you get peerless aim. So once per turn, if you miss an attack, you can just choose to hit instead. Kind of like it makes me think of like, you know, enemies' legendary actions maybe. But yeah, so once per turn, if you miss an attack, you can basically choose to hit instead. And then at level 20, you get another attack for 4 total. So again, fighters are all-rounders. They are big, beefy boys who just basically tank and hit everything. So we're going to go into these subclasses. So the first one is Battle Master, and these fighters are just people who study the art of battle and master their types of attack. So you know, the archery, the 2-weapon fighting, the defense, things like that. And at level 3, when you pick this subclass, you get the get maneuvers. There are a lot of maneuvers. I have made a note of a couple of them. So you go with Commanding Presence, which when you make charisma checks, you get to roll a superiority die, which starts off as, which is a d8, which is this little guy here. You get to roll a superiority die and add that to the check. Also evasive footwork, so as a bonus you can use your superiority die to disengage, like the rogue can. So disengage, and you will not provoke attacks of opportunity, put my teeth back in, and you will also roll your superiority die, and you will get that as an addition to your AC until the start of your next turn. So yeah, just double checking that I'd written that down correctly. So you could get an extra, say, 6 or 7 to your AC, making you harder to hit until the start of your next go. And your superiority die, like I said, you get the D8s, you get 4 of them, and they reset on a short or a long rest. And this number increases as you level up. You also become a student of war, so you become proficient in artisan tools of your choice, and when you create your character, you always get like fighter skills, or if you like whichever class that you choose in, you'll be able to have skills from that class. So you would also be able to gain another skill from the fighter skill set. At level 7, you can basically know your enemy, and as a bonus action you can look at an enemy within 30 feet of you, and you will know any resistances, any vulnerabilities, any immunities. So you would be able to know if an enemy within 20 feet of you is resistant to cold damage or vulnerable to fire damage, and you could potentially you might have a weapon that deals that kind of damage. So if they're vulnerable to it, you're going to be able to deal double damage. Or if you've got any immunities, you could potentially voice that and let the rest of the party know. So like he's immune to fire damage. So if anyone with fire spells, they're not going to waste their spell slots trying to attack that person with a spell that's not going to do any damage to them. At level 10, your superiority die becomes a D10 rather than a D8. And at level 15, you become relentless. So once per turn, you can use a D8 rather than a D10. So it's basically you can use a D8 rather than expending your superiority die. So I guess the risk is that you'd roll less with a smaller die, but you wouldn't have to expend your superiority die. You can save that for other things as well. And then at level 18, your superiority die becomes a D12. So it does increase from a D8 to a D12 as you level up. The next one is champion, and these fighters, they go through rigorous training to become the victor among victors, basically the best of the best. And for champions, they get improved critical. So at level 3, you get improved critical. Normally a critical hit is just a 20. I know it's backwards, but so a nat 20, that's critical hit. But if I can find it, they also get crits on a 19. So 19, 20 would be a critical hit for these fighters. You also become a remarkable athlete, which gives you advantage on strength checks and initiative. And again, advantage is roll your d20, you roll it twice, and you pick the highest number. Similarly, with disadvantage, you roll the d20 twice, and you pick the lower number. But you get advantage on initiative and strength checks. At level 7, you gain another fighting style. So again, if you chose archery for your first one, you could then choose, say, 2-weapon fighting or defense or something like that. So again, it depends on what you want your, how you want your fighting style to, basically how you want to play your fighter. Level 10, you become a heroic warrior, so you can give yourself heroic inspiration if you start your combat. If you start combat without heroic inspiration, you can give yourself heroic inspiration. I'm not sure how long it lasts, and I'm not entirely sure if there's any cap to it, basically. But I think if you start your round with heroic inspiration, then you can't give yourself another inspiration. At level 15, your critical becomes even better, so if you roll an 18, 19 or 20, that would be a critical hit. So again, you've just got more chance of doing double damage. And at level 18, you become a survivor, so you get advantage on death saving throws. Again, advantage is rolling this little guy here, the D20, and picking the best number. And then on an 18, 19 or 20, it acts like a 20 for everybody else. So if you roll an 18, 19 or 20, you are up and on 1 hit point. And if you are bloodied, you regain 5 hit points plus your constitution modifier. So again, if your constitution was 16, you'd have a modifier of 3, so you would be able to regain 8 points. I think that's at the start of every turn, or as a bonus action. I'm not entirely sure. But the status bloodied means you only have half of your hit points or fewer. So if you got your hit points back up to half, or if someone healed you for more than half, you wouldn't be able to use that as a feature of the subclass, unfortunately. But considering fighters tend to be tanks, especially people with 2-weapon fighting and the defense fighting style, I think that would probably be the way to go. And the next one we have is Eldritch Knight, and these fighters combine magic with their fighting style. So they get access to cantrips, and they take these from the wizard's spell list, and they also get access to a couple of spell slots at the first level, which again, for all of the other spellcasting classes, you'll get more spell slots and you'll get higher level spells as you level up as well. And intelligence is the casting ability for the Eldritch Knight. I think with the druid it was wisdom. I think for the cleric it was wisdom as well, but for the Eldritch Knight it would be intelligence. So if you were going to play an Eldritch Knight, then it would be good to think of at character creation. It would be good to kind of think of giving your character a slightly higher intelligence that may forfeit other ones, say like charisma or wisdom or something like that. But it's always a good thing to go with having an idea of where you want your character to go, but then also planning for it in the early stages of character creation, early stages of the game as well. I'm not saying that you need to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, because that would be extremely stressful, but it's always good to kind of like have at the back of your mind, like, I want my fighter to be on the Eldritch Knight, I'm going to make sure that I give them a decent intelligence. Oh, level 3 you also get a war bond, so you can it takes it's an hour's ritual, and you get to bond with one of your weapons basically. And what that does is, unless you're incapacitated, that you can't be disarmed. So there's no way to disarm your character. But say if you threw your weapon as an attack, say you've got a hand axe, you throw that as an attack, then you can use a bonus action to summon it back to your hand. You can be war bonded to 2 weapons at the same time, so if you did go with the 2-weapon fighting, you'd be able to summon both weapons back, but only one at a time. So it would have to be summon one back one round, and then summon another one back another round. And you can only be bonded to two weapons at a time. So if you wanted to change one of your weapons, you would have to break that bond, break one of the bonds first. You also get War Magic, that is at level 7. So you can replace an attack with a cantrip. So you could do at level 7 you would have your 2 attacks. So you could attack with, say, your longsword, and then you could cast a cantrip and use that as an attack as well. At level 10 you get access to the Eldritch Strike. So any creature you hit with a weapon, they have disadvantage on saving throws until the start of your next turn. At level 15 you get Arcane Charge. Yep, Arcane Charge. I sometimes cannot read my own handwriting, which is terrible. But you can teleport up to 30 feet when you use your action surge. So you've done your I think you'd have 3 attacks at that point. So you've done your attacks and you use your action surge. You can move up to 30 feet, either like towards an enemy, away from an enemy, depending on what's going on in combat. You can move up to 30 feet. At level 18 you get improved War Magic, so instead of just using a cantrip as an attack, you can use level 1st or 2nd level spells, which tend to be stronger than cantrips. And the final one, I'm always surprised that I get through these so quickly, but I did want these to be slightly shorter lives than I have done in the past, more bite-sized little nuggets. But the final subclass for the fighter is the Psi Warrior. So these fighters, they awaken their mind and they use psionic powers alongside their martial abilities in order to deal damage to their foes. So at level 3 you get psionic powers, and you start off with 4 d6, and these will increase to d8, 10 and 12 I do believe, and they increase in number as well as you level up. So you start off with 4 d6 to start with, and you can expend these in order to do like a multitude of things. So you've got protective field, so as a reaction you can use your psionic die to kind of increase to reduce the damage that someone, either someone or you, take as a reaction. A Psi Strike, Psionic Strike, so after you use an attack you can use one of these psionic die and add that as damage. And also telekinetic movement, so you can move objects, I think it's 30 or 40 feet, and if it's a tiny object you can zoom it straight to your hand. If it's larger, then you can move it. You won't be able to move it towards you, but you can move it across the combat map. At level 7 you become telekinetically adept. I'm surprised I actually managed to say that in one go. So you get a Psi Leap. You get, as a bonus action, you get to fly. You get fly movement equal to your actual movement. You can only use that once per short or long rest. And then you get the telekinetic thrust, so you can force opponents. So you can force opponents to make a strength saving throw. If they fail, they get knocked prone. And then again, once you're prone, it takes half your movement to get back up again. Level 10, you gain a guarded mind, so you are resistant to psychic damage. So any psychic damage dealt against you is halved. And you can use a psionic die to get rid of the charmed or frightened condition at the start of your turn. So say you've had a couple of rounds of combat, an enemy forces you to try and save against being charmed or frightened, you fail and you become either charmed or frightened, but you can expend one of your psionic die at the start of your turn to get rid of that condition basically. At level 15 you get the Bulwark of Force. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. Sometimes my brain doesn't word. So you get a bonus action to shield yourself and a number of creatures within 30 feet of you, and that's equal to your intelligence modifier. So again, if you had an intelligence of 16, you'd have a modifier of 3, and then you would people that you choose would then gain half cover, so they would be harder to hit. That lasts for a minute, so in combat that is 10 rounds of combat, so then you would be harder to hit for those 10 rounds. And at level 18 you become Telekinetic Master, and you have the telekinesis spell equipped at all times. You can only use it once on a long rest, or you can expend another psionic die to get it back, and at that point you would have where is it? You would have 12d12 as your psionic die, so you would be able to cast it, if you just wanted to cast telekinesis, you would be able to cast it 12 times, but I'm sure that when you're in combat there are other things that you would want to expend your psionic die to do. Then again, it is your fighter, you do whatever you want with your little character. And that is everything on fighter. So if anyone has any questions, I will leave them to think of them right now, but I have shown the dice of the live, and I always do an honourable mention. I have shown this before, but I want to show it again because it's really cool. This is my honourable mention die. I don't know if it's really bright, as you can, I don't know if you can see actually. You've got a d12, d6 and d4, and you spin. It spins for a while. On the other side, I've got the D10, the D20, the D10 in percentile, and the D8, and it is still going. Oh my lord. And then, depending on where it stops, I think it's better if it's flat. See, we've got 11 on the D12, and I got a 19 on the D20, so... But yeah, so you can see like the little dragon design on this side. I'm trying to angle it so you can kind of see the... kind of shield it a little bit. I don't know. I don't go live very often, and my ring light, I made it a bit of a mess. But yeah, I just wanted to show off my little honourable mention die. Got this off my brother and his girlfriend for, I think it was Christmas? Yeah, I think it was Christmas. Let's see, that one is... I got 4 on that one. There we go. I don't think you can really tell. In the middle, there are numbers as well on this little white band here. But yeah, I think it's too bright. You can't really see it. I think it's best. I mean, if you do, I spun it like 3 or 4 seconds ago, and if you do leave it to spin, it will just go and go and go and go. I did think about implementing this during Avernus and Icewind for death saves, but it's still going. I've not stopped it at all, and it doesn't really look like it's slowing down. Oh, there we go. And if it was a death save, it would be a fail because that was a 5. But yeah, if you just spin it and let it go, it does spin for a good long while. So I'm not entirely sure, depending on how people feel, if they want to wait for 30 seconds for the outcome of a death save. But I will say, if nobody has any questions, I'm going to end the live here. Thank you to everyone who has watched, everyone who has liked, anyone who has interacted in any way. Thank you very much, as always. And I will... I'm trying to think when the next live will be. It's not going to be next week. I think it will be the Friday after that. And also, I'm going to try and get another cooking live out to you guys soon, because I've not done one of those in a while, and I feel the need to get my D&D nerd cook on. So I might put up a poll in the next Hump Day Dump Day, and to see what people want to see cooked or what. We'll see what's what, and I will see you in the next live, hopefully in 2 weeks. Bye!